Hey, listen up, Dad. It's Father's Day. Do you know what that means? Today we celebrate you. That mug on your desk that said World's Best Dad, you earned it. Oh, you earned it. You're my superhero and you don't even know it. Oh. I guess you do know it because I just told you. Mama says you bring home the bacon. Thank you, because bacon is so good. When we scrape our knees, you remind us they're not boo-boos. They're badges of bravery. Even though they kind of feel like boo-boos. If you rearrange the letters to Dad, you get add. That's because being with you is a huge plus. Oh, and you also taught me puns. Because of you, I know it's better to be lost than to ask for directions. I mean, seriously, where are we going? I'm pretty sure that guy knew where to go. They call it Google Maps, Dad. It's like free at the App Store. Just saying. Dad, you're the hardest worker I know. Why do they call it a hard hat? Oh. Thanks for educating us in next level handshakes. Wins or not, ridiculous nicknames, fort building, and the importance of fixing something yourself, and then calling somebody to come actually fix it. Hey, I'm gonna need you to come fix something. Yeah, my dad tried to fix something himself. No, it wasn't pretty. Trust me. Okay, bye. You're my best friend, my biggest fan. You'll always be there when I need you, and sometimes even when I don't. In conclusion, from kids every age, everywhere, happy Father's Day! Yay! Hashtag we love you. And thank you for teaching me how to do this.
On such an awesome day. I think it's awesome that fathers are here. This is a big attendance this morning. And, man, usually on Father's Day, I'm not going to drop any names, but people go out fishing or out hiking, right? And they're not in church. So it is incredible to see all of you this morning here with us. Well, hey, this morning we want to take this like almost once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to speak to you about the influence of a father, and specifically we're going to have some fun sharing some stories about our father getting back for a year's worth, or not a year's, a lifetime's worth of ministry of just stories being told about us. I remember one time being a little kid, we went to a Christian school, and this is not in my notes, I just thought of it right now. We were in a Christian school, and so Dad occasionally would speak for the chapel services. And I remember this one time, I don't even know what the story was, but he told this embarrassing story about me, and I started crying, and I was all embarrassed, and my teacher let me skip class to go, that was the real reason I started crying, to go and be mad at my dad for telling an embarrassing story about me. And as an elementary school student, crying in front of your whole class is like the most embarrassing thing ever. But this morning, we want to talk about the influence of fathers. And whether you want to believe it or not, fathers, mothers, parental figures, you have so much incredible influence over the life of your students and of your children. And I want to say this morning, a point related to this is that time is directly related to influence. Time is directly related to influence. And you'll notice this, remembering back in your life, that the more time you spend with someone, the more you become like that someone. Some of you in your parenting, you had your child and they began hanging around someone, and or maybe it wasn't a someone, maybe it was a something, and they were watching a movie, or they picked up on something, right? Because of the time they spent with that someone or something, the influence. There was, I'm going to go to hell for saying this in church this morning. There was a movie, Shrek, when I was a kid, and the three of us would, once again, not in my notes, the three of us would watch Shrek, and at the end of the movie, there was the song, I Like Big Butts and I Cannot Lie. And So we watched this movie quite a bit, and so we liked the song quite a bit. And in the grocery store, we would be singing this really loud. And one day my mom broke down and she said, "That's it." She said, "No more Shrek. We're putting it away. No more Shrek. You can't watch that movie anymore." And but time is directly related to influence. The more time you spend with someone, the more you begin to become and to pick up those characteristics. And what more than a father should be spending that much time with your own children. And so this morning, I want to encourage you as we begin to talk about influence. My first week as a youth pastor here at the church, I was 19 years old, which is crazy. I wasn't even married yet. Lindsay and I were going to be getting married that summer. And I remember a student coming up to me and saying, "You know, I think of you like a father figure." And I went, "Oh, no." I went home, and I told Lindsay, I said, "Lindsay, I'm not ready to be a father yet." And but here's the deal. I want you to know that this morning, whoever you are in this room, that this message does apply to you, that even if you are not a father yet, there are children looking up to you as a spiritual father or a spiritual mother, and you have an incredible amount of influence over their lives. And so as we keep on that topic this morning, what we want to do is share 3 things, each of us thinking back over something that our father had an incredible amount of influence over in our lives. And my name's Taylor. I'm the middle child of the 3. Any middle children in the house? Yeah? Isaiah? Yeah, we're buddies. No one understands the middle child like a middle child. So this one's for you, bro. In Proverbs 22, verse 6, we're going to kind of tie this together throughout the whole message today. It says, "Train a child up in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." I remember hearing that verse so many times because my dad for many years was a children's pastor. And so talking to either parents or to even children, quoting that verse and learning that, you know, train a child in the way he should go. When he grows old, he will not turn from it. There's such an importance over children specifically. And so this morning in sharing about the 3 things that we've learned, I began to think about, man, what is one of the most influential things my father has done for me over my years. And the first thing that popped into my mind was servanthood. When I think of my dad and the influence of my dad, one of the first things that comes to my mind is servanthood. My dad taught me to serve well, to serve others, and that I needed to put a higher value on others and putting others first before I put myself. And so if there's anything I learned that from my father. I remember mowing lawns when I was a kid. And I got ripped off so many times. Mow like this huge patch of grass. You get paid $5 for it. I was like, what a ripoff. And my dad would say, "Go get the push broom out and sweep the sidewalk." And I said, "I'm not getting paid to sweep the sidewalk. I got asked to mow the lawn." I mowed the lawn. There it is. It's done. And my dad would say, "No, you go sweep the grass. Always do above and beyond what's asked of you." And I remember as a kid, I hated that. I was like, "Oh, Dad, seriously." But looking back on it now and how that's influenced my life, that he's taught me to be a servant. In Colossians 3:23 through 24, it says, "Work willingly at whatever you do, as though you are working for the Lord rather than for people. Remember that the Lord will give you an inheritance as your reward, and that the master you are serving is Christ." Work willingly at whatever you do as though you are working for the Lord. I can't tell you how many times my dad told me that growing up. To come home with a C average in school. "You, son, you need to step this up. You are going to school for the Lord. You work at those grades like you are working for the Lord." And that did not motivate me so much as I said, "I'll stop serving the Lord. I don't want to go to school anymore." But the influence a father has, and he taught me how to serve others well. My dad does so many things above and beyond what's asked of him, and that has just impacted my life and the way that I see the world, the way I act around people. Back to that picture, my dad is always just the willing hand to jump out and to serve others. Janelle, if we could go back to that picture real quick. This is at summer camp a couple years ago. I wear a sombrero primarily because I have pasty white skin and I get burnt really bad. And so we put some tortilla chips in my hat. and Dad came up with this awesome idea that it needed to have dip to go with it. So Dad bought some nacho cheese, and we walked around camp, and we served tortilla chips out of my hat and dip. And as a senior pastor, it's so awesome that he takes time out of his week. He drives to camp every year to spend a day with our students. That's not something that's required of him. That's not even something that we've asked him to do. As a kid, I'm like, get away, Dad. All the kids, though, they're like, oh, this is awesome. Pastor Jerry's here. And Dad loves teenagers. He loves our students here at this church. And so even though it's not part of his job description, because he loves and is willing to serve, he comes out to just spend a day loving on our students and being with us. And it's super awesome. I can think of a time just recently where I got back to the church, and I had a truckload full of stuff. It was kind of heavy, and I had to unload it. And so he sees me out the window, and he comes out, and he said, would you like some help? I said, definitely. Please help me. And so he starts helping me get this stuff out of the truck, and we're bringing it in, going back and forth, load after load. And so like a young person, I run, and I jump up into the bed of the truck. And my dad, you probably haven't seen his truck because he doesn't drive it here usually on a Sunday morning. But my dad has a big truck. And I have a little truck. You like step into it and it's like boop, and you're in the truck, right? My dad, he's got a big truck. And so I run, I jump into this thing. And some people, this is just going to be all too relatable this morning. My dad gets this crazy look in his eye. And he kind of pauses. And he's staring into the back of the truck. And as a son, I'm just going like, oh no. Dad, think this one through. In my mind, I'm thinking, like, do I have to drive him to the hospital next? Like, what comes after this? And, but the other thing as a son is you want to see how it plays out. And so I'm like, I don't tell him anything. I'm like, you can just go on and keep doing this. And so he goes and he runs. And the funny thing is he prepares to run. He's like, and he trips his way into the truck so close to a trip to the hospital. And Lindsay was with us, and she said, I'm going to tell your wife that you're pretending to be young. And it's so funny. But man, if I could share one thing that I've learned under the influence of my father, it is to serve others well, to place the needs of others before my own, and to serve well. And Dad, happy Father's Day, and thank you for teaching me that. So.
All right. It's hard to follow up that story. Everybody say, oh, isn't that cute? Anyways, this is my dad back in his children's pastor days with his big 80s glasses and red mustache. I get to talk today about the influence that a father has on relationships. So specifically, I want to talk about 3 relationships, and that is the relationship with others, the relationship with a spouse in a marriage, and also the relationship that we have with God. So anyone that knows my dad knows that he values relationships, and he places an important role on relationships in his life. So if I had to prioritize those relationships for you really quick, I'm going to attempt. I would say number 1 is first and foremost his relationship with God. That's above everything. Number 2 would be his family. Number 3 would be his chickens. Kidding. Number 3 would be his church family, all of you guys. You guys play an important role in his life. And then his chickens, and then his sprinklers, if we catch him on a good day. Can we all just take a moment to look at this photo? This is a picture of my dad. We showed up at the house for a visit, and he was sitting in the lawn playing with his sprinklers. This is a common pastime. If you happen to drive by our house, most likely than not, you will catch my dad in this position in the lawn. He spends a lot of time doing this. But all kidding aside, I'm really thankful that my dad placed a high value on relationships. Anyone that knows any of the Galbraith children knows we're not shy, and we have gained a lot of our social skills, I would say, from watching Dad growing up. I have a couple statistics that I found online while I was preparing for this message, and they all just relate to the influence that a father has on his children's life throughout various stages of life. So I want to read these for you really quick. The first one, it says, children with actively involved fathers have stronger verbal skills as young as 2 years old. They have less behavior problems in school. They have more positive peer reactions and display more positive friendship qualities. They are more likely to have pro-social sibling interactions. You can judge that one for yourself. They are more likely to experience less tension in their interactions with other children. They are more likely to solve conflicts by themselves rather than seeking assistance from other people. They are also more likely to grow up tolerant and understanding, be well socialized and successful adults. They have supportive social networks consisting of long-term close friendships. They adjust well to college, both personally and socially, and they are also more likely to have long-term successful marriages and be less likely to divorce. Now, we know that not all facts and statistics are true in all cases, but I think it's pretty clear to see the influence that a father has on his child's relationships from a young age. A father often influences the way that his children learn to communicate and to interact with other people. Often we learn our first words from our father, and whether that's positive or negative, you can say, but that's how we learn to interact with people around us. I want to read a verse really quick. This is 1 John 4:20 through 21, and it says, if someone says, I love God, but hates a fellow believer, that person is a liar. This thing is freaking out of me. For if we don't love people we can see, how can we love God whom we cannot see? And he has given us this command, those who love God must also love their fellow believers. And I think if there's one thing that I learned from my dad growing up, it would be just to love people where they're at and never to take our relationship with God and to use that to influence people in our lives. I want to share a quick story really quick growing up. This is about a girl. I'm going to call her Stacy for the purpose of the story. And Stacy was a girl that went to my high school. She was not very popular. She didn't really have any friends. She never spoke. So I don't think it's that she didn't want to have friends or I think she just really didn't know how to be a friend. She had never learned the proper way to communicate with people. So for some reason, Stacy had just gained an infatuation with me and my friends that I was friends with at the time, and she used to follow us around. She wanted so badly to be part of our group, but she just didn't know how. So we would try to get to know her, but she wouldn't talk. She would just, kind of stand there, and, she would just follow us around the campus. And I remember there were times we would be conversing in like a circle, and I could just feel someone like behind me. And can I just say something to all the teenagers really quick in here? There are just some people at your school that are they're just hard to love. Am I right? But the thing is that that's exactly what God has called us to do. And that's one thing that I learned from my dad. So here's Stacy, and she's listening in on our conversation. And, I kind of step over and ask if she wants to join in. And she just kind of stands there, and like, okay. So Stacy, over time, she befriended me on Facebook. She started sending me all kinds of messages and wanting to know my address and where I lived and my phone number and just things that I wouldn't feel really comfortable giving out to anybody, And over time, she started to learn things about me that I had never shared with her before. And I'm like, where did she learn all this stuff? And I remember just being really weirded out. I was like, this is so weird. Like, why is she so obsessed with me? Like, why does she want to know all this information about me? She invited me to a party at her house and the group of friends that we were with. And so we were really hesitant. We didn't want to go. Well, this didn't go so well with my dad. He said, you guys will be going to this party, and you're going to have fun, and you're going to be nice to her, And we said, okay, well, and he's like, she needs a friend, and you guys may be the only friend that will ever be there for her. So we did. We went to this party, and, we were able to get a group of friends to come with us. And we showed up at this party, and we just kind of got to know her a little bit. We got to meet her family, and I remember the next week at school, she wrote me a letter, and she said, I just want to say thank you for coming to my house and coming to my party. And she said, I've never felt accepted before. I've never felt that I have friends before. And she said, because of what you guys did, she goes, I now feel like I'm part of something. And so I just wanted to kind of share that story. If it wasn't for the encouragement of my dad to reach out, and I know there's been so many times in my life that I think of her, and I just think how many people are out there that need a friend, and to never turn your back on somebody just because they're different or because, they don't fit in. I want to share one more quick story just about in my own relationship. And when I was in junior high, my youth pastor at the time, he encouraged the youth group. He was doing a series on dating and relationships, and he encouraged us to go home and to make a list of what we wanted in a future spouse one day. And I was thinking, this is weird, like I'm in junior high, like not looking to get married right now, But I did. I don't even know if you've heard this story. But anyways, so I went home and I started to jot down this list of what I was looking for. And some things were very specific, like things, I wouldn't compromise on. Like he had to put God first. He had to be involved in church. He had to want to be involved in ministry. And then there was some little... I left no detail untouched. If you know me, I'm very this is what I want. And so some little things, like he had to not only love music, but he had to play the guitar. Like that was important. And he had to have blue or green eyes is what I put on there. He had to be good at technology because I am not skilled in that area. He also had to be a dog lover because we were going to own a dog one day. And I remember writing these things out, and as I'm getting older, and I never dated anybody. I was just waiting to find the person that was going to meet all these requirements. And I remember thinking, there's just nobody out there for me. And then one day it hit me, and I was like, oh no, I just described my dad, without ever intentionally meaning to. Every trait that I had written down was something that I had learned from my dad growing up. So I'm so blessed now to have found Cody. They are so alike in every way. If you were at our wedding, my dad shared some fun stories about them. They both played trumpet and were band geeks in high school, and so they just have so much in common. But I think especially as little girls, the first model and example that we have of a man is through our father. And so just to find somebody that has all those same attributes was just a big blessing to me. So.
Awesome. I am, for those of you who don't know me, I am Jacob. I am the youngest and cutest Galbraith kid. I don't care what these two tell you. We have the home videos to prove it, okay? Just throwing that out there right now. So our main verse for this whole day is Proverbs 22:6, and it says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So what does that verse mean? First of all, it means you train your kids to grow up and be Seahawks and Mariners fans. All right, gonna get an amen? No. But in all seriousness, what that verse is saying is, it's saying that what you do now will affect who your kids are tomorrow. And that is a big thing, especially as fathers. I know that could be a lot of pressure on you. Because you're thinking, how am I going to do this? What's going to happen? Because what you do will ultimately influence your kids one way or another. Why? Because as kids, we are constantly looking up to the example that is put above us. We're constantly looking and we are copying the actions of our fathers. Research has actually shown that a lot of what a kid their first idea of God comes from their father's actions. Whether or not they are going to believe in a God, whether or not they are going to try to follow him is a direct result of what they see their father do, and that is a big, big responsibility. Another scripture in Colossians chapter 2, verse 7 says that let your roots grow down into him and let your lives be built on him. Then your faith will grow strong in the truth you were taught, and you will overflow with thankfulness. You see, as fathers, as parents in general, it is you have the ability, but also the responsibility to lead your kids as close as they can to a relationship with God. That doesn't mean you're going to force them, because you can't force them. They are a human being. They're going to make their own decisions. That's just how God made us. But it is your responsibility to try to guide them and lead them, nudge them in the way of God and following him. And the thing is, many fathers in today's world, they tend to take this idea of the last influence we're going to talk about, which is faith. And you got to understand, the faith influence is the most important influence that you as a father can have on your kids. Because if you get the faith influence right, the relationship influence, the servanthood influence, they'll line up with the Bible. They will line up with what God wants. So you cannot stress this enough, but many fathers, they see this idea of being an influence in faith as, oh, I'm going to make sure my kid is in church. That is awesome. Okay, I am not pushing that aside. That is awesome, but you hear you always hear the phrase, oh, it's the least I can do. Yeah, that really is. Just being real. Taking your kids to church, that is literally the least you can do. I am going to give some statistics for you of the effect going to church with a father does have. The Christian posted some research on this and on how fathers attending church affects their kids. The first thing that they found was that if both the father and mother attend regularly, 33% of their children will end up as regular churchgoers, and 41% will end up attending irregularly. Only a quarter of their children will end up not practicing at all. Second thing they found is that if the father is irregular, so it just shows up every once in a while, and the mother's regular, only 3% of the children will go to church themselves. 3% from 33% on the other one. And 59% will become irregulars. 38% of the kids will be lost completely. The third thing they found is that if the father is non-practicing and the mother is regular, only 2% of children will become regular worshipers, and 37% will attend church irregularly. Over 60% of their children will be lost completely to the church. So the first thing, if you want to influence your kids in their faith, first thing to do, take them to church. First of all, that's the first thing you can do, but that is not the only thing. You have to take a step above simply taking them to church and hoping they turned out okay. You have to lead by example in your home. And I'm going to give you guys 3 points, 3 things to kind of teach your kids on how to influence them the proper way in their faith. These are things my dad taught us. And for those of you who aren't fathers, you young people in here, take a listen, because this is something you need to learn. All right, this is going to bring everything home. So 3 things to teach your kids in regards to their faith. Number 1, teach them how to lean. More specifically, teach them how to lean in faith in God. So, quick story real fast. My dad is not always the best with directions. If you guys went to the Mariners game with us last year, you know what I'm talking about. He kind of took us on a little 20-minute detour to nowhere. So a couple years, I think it was 2 years ago now, beginning of the year, we had some family friends who were getting married in the Seattle area. So we decided, okay, we'll make a mini vacation out of it, go rent a couple nights in a hotel, stay there, and have some fun while we're waiting for the wedding. And the whole trip, my dad is getting us lost, not knowing where we're going. But one time specifically, we were coming back from dinner, trying to make it back to the hotel, and Cassie, myself, and Cody are in one vehicle. Taylor, Lindsay, and my mom and dad are in a different vehicle. So I'm in the vehicle with Cody and Cassie, and we're following my dad, and we're kind of looking like, this is not where the hotel is. Where are we going? So we kind of take a detour, we take a side turn, and turns out we were wrong too. We went the wrong way, but then we just, okay, we'll type it into our phone, the GPS will get us there. So we're going like, oh, well, we took a wrong turn. We had to find the GPS to get back. Dad's probably going to beat us there. That's fine. We'll just meet up with him there. No. We get back to the hotel, and they're not there yet, and they left before us, right? So we're sitting there for about another 5 minutes thinking they'd show up. Still haven't shown up. So finally, Cassie gets on the phone. She calls Taylor. It's like, hey, Taylor, how far away are you? Taylor says, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. Dad's on wrong turn number 15. And we didn't realize this. We didn't learn this till they finally met up with us at the hotel. The whole time, Taylor's in the back seat with the address to the hotel in his phone, telling my dad, hey, Dad, the GPS says you need to go this way. What does my dad say? No, I know where I'm going. Put that away. I don't need that. You see, in that situation, my dad was leaning a little bit too much on his ability to get us to where he needed to go. He thought that living in Seattle for 7+ years meant he knew where he was going, but obviously he didn't, right? But you see, in life, we do that same thing. We think that because we've gone through life, we know the direction that we are going to go. We know where we can go. And in the meantime, we're trying to use our ability to get us to where we want to go. And God's just saying, simply lean on me. I will take you to where you need to go. And, especially as kids when we're younger, we try to, be cool and prove ourselves to our parents, like through our actions. Like, oh, watch, I'm going to do this. And, I'm going to make you love me because I can do this. I'm going to be your favorite child because I can do this. But in many times we try to do that in our faith too. And, one thing, the biggest thing to teach your kids in regards to their faith is to teach them to lean on God. So you have to teach them that their faith and God's pleasure in them will never be based on what they did. It will never be based on their performance, but it's solely going to be based on the performance that God did for them. It's not going to be based on them. It's going to be based on God. So do you want to have an influence in your kids' faith? Teach them how to lean on God. Teach them how to lean on faith with God. One thing my dad constantly told us throughout our life was we'd come home, say, oh, we're having a bad day, and everything you just say, trust in God. God will bring you through. Trust in him. He's got you. And you see, that wouldn't mean anything if he wasn't living that out in his life. He led by example in that. He showed us that he was leaning on God, trusting in God throughout our whole entire life. So number 1, teach your kids to lean on God. Number 2, teach your kids how to lead their faith. Teach them how to lead. First of all, teach them how to lead the faith of themselves. Teach them how to go to navigate through this difficult world and not give in to sin, not give in to the temptations of the world. Teach them how to lead themselves in a godly relationship with God, something my dad did for us, and I hope everybody out here, you try to do that in your own lives as well. But not only lead themselves, but teach them how to lead a family. See, one of the big things that I know parents have, they struggle with, I want my kids to have a godly family. Well, one of the easiest ways to make sure your kids have a godly family is to show them how to lead a godly family. Show them in their own home life. Because, like I said, they're going to follow the example of their kids. And the third thing to teach them how to lead is teach them how to lead the lost. I remember growing up, my dad would come home from work and he'd tell all these stories about someone he got to meet that day. Maybe he would serve them they needed some gas, so he would give them some gas, and just conversations he would have with these people about God who didn't know him. And as a kid growing up, I saw that he's living out the mission that Jesus left us here for. That's why Jesus left us here. He didn't leave us here so we could live our life. Because we're going to go to heaven. We're going to live for eternity up there. He left us here to lead the lost, and that's something my dad taught us to do. He taught us in faith to lead the lost of other people, to try to bring them into the kingdom, and taught us how to live out that mission that God has for us. And the third thing to teach your kids how to do is to teach your kids to love. Or you can put it like this: show your faith in love. Teach them how to love God, first of all, because that's the most important one. Teach them how to live a godly life, to love God wholeheartedly, because I don't know if you know this, but when you love God, things happen. And your kids growing up, they'll see how your life is changing because of your love for God, and they will want that too. Many people think, oh, why are my kids not, following God? Well, have you shown them how cool it is? Honestly, have you shown them how cool it is to follow God? Because, we don't want to do something that's lame. We want to do something that's fun and exciting. And loving God, following God is one of the most exciting things you will ever have. And another thing to teach them how to love is teach them how to love others. Teach them how to love their family. Because you see, there is no perfect family. There are difficult times, there's arguments, there's disagreements. Teach them how to get out of those disagreements, how to get out of those arguments, and to show love to the people, and to show love to others, the unlovables, just like Cassie talked about. that relationship with others is so key. Teach them how to love the people that no one else is going to love, and that will in turn help live out the mission that God has called us to do. The third one to teach them how to love, going back to the beginning, is teach them to love the church. It's something different to just take them to church and sit here and hope they get something out of it. It's a completely other thing to teach them to genuinely love the church. Teach them to love the church by giving of their time, giving of their money, giving of their support. Show them that, yes, there's many things you can accomplish on your own, but there are certain things that you can accomplish together. And I remember one more story. When we were down in California, we got down at the church. We were pastoring down there, and we weren't going to move for a little while. So we very easily could have just taken a break and not gone to church. We didn't get to do that. Hadn't had a break in 6 years. But my dad made it a point that we were going to be at a church every single week. And we went to this one church and comes into the lobby, and there's a name tag area there. And he decided, it says, hello, my name is. So he fills it out the first week, and he's like, oh, hello, my name is Fred. Puts it on his chest. Lives out the whole entire day as if he is Fred, right? Well, then we decided we liked that church. We wanted to go back again. We come back a second time. And this time they have someone manning the table. So she fills it out. She fills, hello, my name is Fred. She's like, here you go, Fred. He's like, no, my name's Jerry. She's like, no, stop. No, your name's Fred. I already met you. You're Fred. And that's just a funny story. But really what that taught us was he was teaching us to love the church. He was teaching us to love being in church, being in fellowship with other people, because, like I said, we could have very easily taken a break and just tried to relax on a Sunday morning that we didn't get to do. But he taught us to love the church, to love being in church. So the three things to help lead your kids in their faith and influence them in their faith, is to teach them how to lean on God, teach them how to lead, and teach them how to love. Maybe you guys are in here, and just Taylor kind of hinted at the beginning, and you're thinking, oh, my kids are out of the house. It's all good. I don't need to worry about that anymore. Or maybe I don't have kids at all yet, so that's good, but I don't need that. But I can tell you one thing. There are some young people in this room who are looking at you. Sometimes they don't have a godly influence in their life. They don't have that father figure. They don't have that mother figure in their life. And this church family is the only real true sense of family that some people have. So I encourage you to watch how you're influencing other people by your actions, because actions speak louder than words. You can talk all you want, but they are going to be watching what you do when you're in this building. They're going to be watching how you treat other people, and that is going to affect their influence. It will either affect them in a good way or in a bad way. So for all of you here today, father or not, I encourage you to pay attention to your influence and the influence that you're having on somebody else. Could bow your heads with me real fast. God, right now, I just thank you for all the influences that you put in front of us for each and one of our lives. And I pray that you would help us to focus on the influence that we are having on other people. That as we are living our life, that we will realize that what we do is going to have a direct effect on somebody around us because people are watching us. Pray that you would help us to live in such a way that pleases you, that you would help us to live in such a way that we will be servants to others, we will have good relationships with you, good relationships with others, and that you would help us to influence people in our faith as well as continuing to grow in ours. Thank you for all the fathers in this room and everything they have meant to so many kids, both in their own family and kids in other families, Lord. I just thank you for them. Pray that you would bless them this year and wish them a very happy Father's Day, and that you would continue to help fathers everywhere be good and positive influences in their kids' lives. In your name I pray. Amen.